Investigative reporter Tanya Iser has been following these developments every step of the way. Tanya, can you explain what these bills would do?
Well, lawmakers say these changes are going to result in the winterization of power plants and critical natural gas facilities. But the experts we talked to said the biggest problem with this legislation is that it does not have any deadlines set for when these things have to occur, and they're concerned that this could happen again. Let's take a listen to Tom Smith, a former head of Public Citizen.
We continue to ignore the fact that it gets cold in Texas, things freeze, pipes burst, and unless we really get tough this time, it's going to happen again and again. And this legislature is not tough enough to stop that from happening.
We also talked to him about the penalties that's in this legislation, and Smith and other experts we've talked to said the penalties are just simply too low and could end up being the price of doing business.
Tanya, what are some of the other changes that lawmakers made?
Well, there are some good things in this legislation. You'll recall there were massive problems with communication during the storm, and so they're creating an emergency alert system. And also remember those huge bills that some residential customers got, and they're outlawing those wholesale retail plans that cause so many problems like Gritty.
And I know some of these companies experienced huge financial losses during the storm. Are lawmakers doing anything about that?
Yeah, they are, Chris. They've approved legislation that will allow these companies to get state-approved bonds. And what that'll mean is that consumers over the next 10, 15, 20 years are going to be paying that debt back. And so this is going to be with us for a long time. And, really remains to be seen whether the changes that lawmakers have made will really make a difference and prevent the next set of power outages. Back to you.
All right.